So if you are a Buchla person, you will know that you can buy a square wave oscillator from Buchla. But then if you own a sequencer, there's also a timing module that clocks the sequencer. Those are the exact same circuit. The timing module just has banana jacks on the front end, is calibrated to be low. And Serge was like, you're scamming your customers, dude. Right? So that was sort of his like thought process and some of that. But it has some cool stuff. It's missing a bunch of things that are normal in a sequencer. There are no filters. There is no noise generator. There is no sample and hold. There is no sequencer. The way you do things is a little bit weird. So for example, if I take a little sine wavy thing, let me turn this up again, make it go. Let's make this go. Cool. Okay. So here's what I can do. It's got these envelope generators. All right. So it's got these things that are going to just like rise and fall. I'm going to put this on the second thing. So like, watch this. So look at that second thing. So that's like falling up and down. You guys get it? Yeah. So it's rising and falling. And then it's got this windowed output where I can take a certain percentage of that rise and fall and make it like 5 volts on or off. Okay. And so what I can do with that is I got 3 of them. I got 3 of them all going at once. So I got this guy. I got this guy. Let's get this guy going. Hey, that's cool. And then I got this guy going. So I got like these 3 unrelated things. And so then what I can do is I can take them and I can take those like on-off things and put them into a circuit called what's it called? A dual processor. It's a very fancy name. That's the wrong one. All right, let's try this. And so what this is going to do now, watch this, is now I can mix those binary signals in and multiply them by arbitrary voltage and make these kind of stepped ladders. And then I can have that control. Oh no, I hit the camera. Shit. There we go. It's a very nice camera. Now I can take that output and I can control the frequency of the oscillator. And if I eat my Wheaties, now my oscillator is playing a melody, but it's a very chaotic one. Yep, let's turn that up. So what's happening is, let me slow these all down. So you can see as they do their like on-off thing, that voltage is getting multiplied by these things, and I can make these like kind of funny pseudo sequences out of them. There's no reliable scaling on the voltages. He did not use what was a conventional volt per octave scaling to allow you to do anything in tune. You got to just listen. If it's driving you crazy, you can run it through, it has a built-in spring reverb tank. So, you know, it's still out of tune, but now it sounds better. Right? And you can do stuff like that. He didn't have any filters, but he had wave shapers, right? So you could take it and then say, right? This is kind of a cool thing. I'll take the sound and warp it. This is really interesting too, just to draw for you, because it's quite sophisticated in its own way. So Serge designed these wave shaper circuits that do a very funky thing where they warp the incoming signal by a shape that looks like this. This is something called a Chebyshev polynomial. Good word. Take this one home with you and impress your applied mathematician friends. Polynomial. See, this is like going full serial killer here. But look at this shape. Here's what happens with this shape. If you send a sine wave into this shape, what's going to come out is a sine wave at double the frequency. If you send a sawtooth wave into this shape, what's going to come out is a sine wave. It's a really interesting transfer function that is unusual for like an analog circuit. And it allows for this very cool thing. And then I can also do things like take a low frequency oscillator and warp it, right? And make it dynamic and really change the sound, right? Kind of cool. So no filters, but there's this thing, which is kind of cool. It also allows you to do things like dynamically warp. So if I take another output here, let me disconnect this guy and play you some other shit for a sec. That's going in here. Took another output up to that output. Cool. Yeah, that's like that's a module called a positive slew. This is another fun thing he did a lot of. So this is a thing where if you use a little shorting bar, these little guys, you can turn it into an oscillator, but it is not normally an oscillator. It's normally a filter that will add lag to voltages only on the up. And then there's another one called a negative slew that'll do it only on the down, right? And so it'll make a falling saw. And so I can take that and run that through a wave shaper. And as I've shown with my fun transfer function, I can mess with it. I can make it a sine wave, right? And do stuff like this. And then where it gets really weird is you can start saying, hey, you know what? I want to have like the outs of these different things control each other's speed. So you can take like the out of one of these envelope generators and change the duration of another one. And then I could have another one and keep going. But that one control this guy's duration. And then I have this guy control this guy's duration. And before you know it, they're all just like feeding back. It's kind of fun, right? Yeah. And so I thought like that's way more cool than whatever I was doing on the computer. So I was thinking to myself, well, I could somehow visualize that. Right? So let me see if I can find that. I'll play for it for a second. Not that one. Cute lab. There it is. Shut up. It also just randomly goes out of tune whenever it feels like it, which I guess is feeling good. Why isn't it work on the computer? There you go. So this allows me to just arbitrarily take those signals that are coming into my computer and visualize them on the machine. See if I can get this doing something interesting. That's more like it. Fuzzy. Let's get the third thing. It also has a ring modulator, which is a thing that you wouldn't normally expect to find on an inexpensive home-built synthesizer. But it has, which I like. It's going into here. See a third thing. One of the things that I think is really interesting about the guys who designed these things 50 years ago now is they were really influenced by computing with a slightly impoverished understanding of what it means to compute. And so these devices have all sorts of things that speak to computing language at the time, like they have Boolean operators and they have binary counters and stuff like that, but they can't actually do math. Like you can't use this to do your taxes. But I do think it relates to this kind of funny idea about when you perform with technology. And if you've ever seen me talk, you've definitely seen me do this trick before. For reasons that I'm sure Catherine can attest to this too, as someone who comes from a Francophone culture. For some reason that escapes me now that I'm 50 years old, I don't understand why Americans do this. If you want to sound smart in the United States, you say things in French. I don't know if you ever noticed this. So I'm about to do it to you. So jouissance et plaisir are these two words that map quite specifically to the English cognates of joy and pleasure. But they have a more precise valence in metropolitan French. No one would switch them. Coco Fusco, who was my teacher in grad school, performance artist, had decided her description of this is, plaisir is a plaisir item is something like a really nice car. Jouissance is having sex in the back of a really nice car. Now you know the difference. And so a computer, whether you like it or not, is a plaisir item. Right, it's designed to help you do your taxes, whereas a synthesizer, arguably, is a jouissance item. And so this is sort of a fun thing you can like sort of play with when you're thinking about these gizmos. And I think that's one of the reasons. Femi, I want to know what you think about this when we all hang out at the end of this tonight. But like whether that parallel relates to like why people are like really interested in these objects, right? Because they're very, very simple circuits. Often they have computers in them, but it allows you to add this mystique that it is not the same thing that you're using at work with an Excel spreadsheet, right? It's a little bit different. And I don't know, I sort of think about that a lot. Let me show you this strange attractor thing, and we're going to see if it's
1 second.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
What is this tab? 90 seconds of electronic bullshit.
90 seconds of electronic bullshit. This is gonna be this is the thing I'm working on, man. You're gonna love it. 90 seconds of electronic bullshit. I mean, this is actually I think this is about a thing I did for a project at Carnegie Hall a couple of years ago. But it starts with 90 seconds of electronic bullshit. Any good piece, really, if you're being honest, should start with 90 seconds of electronic bullshit. I'm going to prove it to you right now. So, let's say I'm going to make something that does something that makes it whatever. So one of the things that I think about with, what is this? So this is like Julian C. Sprott's groovy equation. And let me see if I'm pretty sure I have a max patch sitting around that already does it. This has got to be it. Hey man, that's one of them. Yeah, sure. So let's see what this does. Hey, there you go. So this is that equation just being evaluated on a graph for you. And if I hit the space bar, it's going to generate a new random starting point, and you will see that if you run an equation where you create a random x and a random y and a random z and some random a, b, c, d, and e coefficients, it will settle to these kind of interesting chaotic or not chaotic static points. And so if I were to take, for example, like 3 of my groovy oscillators here. So let me strip this down a little bit. This will be the last thing I'll show you. You guys can be sick of me. But let me see if I can get this all happening again. The other fun thing about Serge is he uses banana jack patch cords, which are, kind of single conductor wires. He did that because they were cheaper, but they also have this kind of nice added benefit of you can just yank them out without worrying about ripping out a very expensive jack, which is a fatal flaw in the Eurorack system if you work in a university, because half your stuff is broken. All right, so I'm gonna hook this all up, and we're gonna get these damn things in tune, and then we're gonna turn them down, and then we're gonna drive them with this strange attractor. This is gonna be like a cooking show. I hope this works. I don't hear anything. Let me turn this up. Okay, that's one of them. Like this. Sure. I think it sounds great. Yeah, totally in tune. No worries. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to hook this shit and boss these guys around. I'm gonna boss these guys around in number wires. Boss these guys around with the output of my computer. All right. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna go like this, hook this up to here. So I've got 3 oscillators, 3 triangle wave oscillators. I'm gonna send some voltage from my computer into this to tell them what frequency to use, ish. But it's surge, so nothing's going to be in tune or anything like that. But I'm just going to try this. And so I'm going to give me a DAC. I'm going to say 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to get me like a line. If you've ever watched me do this, this is like the kind of, I'm going to sing. All right, what the fuck? Unjoin 3. There, I did it already. They're over here. All right, so can I just do this? Maybe this will work. What are the chances? Something's happening. That worked. All right. Yeah, right? Strange attractors, creating patterns of chaos. So this equation will settle to these like static positions in these interesting ways. And sometimes like one will stick and the other ones will bop around. Or sometimes it's all over the place. Okay, I'm annoyed that one of them is really high, so I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. Which one is really high? That one. That one's gotta fuck off. All right. Let's make it a little bassier. Yeah, and let's draw it. Let's draw it in the crappiest way possible. Scale negative 2 to 2, 0 to 300. Same with you. Join it up. What do I say? Line segment? Line segment. Sure. This might work. This might really not work, but we're gonna try. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, that's what it's doing. You guys get it? All right. And if I clear it. Here's my space bar. Yeah, man. That's a strange attractor. Also a strange attractor. A very strange attractor. Totally strange. Deeply strange. Fucking weird, man. That one's just fucking weird. Why is it doing that? What the hell? See what I mean? This Julian C. Sprott guy was onto something. I'm telling you. You all should read this book. And you could the thing that's, and then you could like learn basic. Which would also be fun. And so that's like I guess that's like the philosophical question I'll leave you with. Is it more useful to learn how to play a 1973 banana jack modular synthesizer, or is it more useful to learn basic? And that is the analog digital Right? This is probably basic, right? Basic, I mean, I don't know. Like the hard thing about basic is basic, like Fortran or like something like that. Yes, because there are these legacy roles available for people who know that stuff in like the banking system, right? There's some there's that like meme of like this big like tower and there's this like little leg that's holding up the whole thing. It's from XKCD, where like it's talking about the whole like internet infrastructure of the world is all being held up by some like open source project that is solely maintained by some dude named Dave. And if Dave goes away, our entire like internet is going to break or whatever. It's a little bit like that with things like Fortran, but I'm not sure about basic. But this stuff is fun. Anyway, thanks for letting me ramble at you.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, and now we'll take like a 5-minute break to move the camera and the microphone, and then we're going to have Femi on Eurorack. While he adjusts, introducing Femi Fleming, aka Sadnoise, who came from Providence today, or maybe he came last night, I don't know, especially for his presentation here. So welcome, Femi. On the Eurorack.
On the Eurorack, arguably the opposite of the Surge, but also kind of similar. Okay, yeah, I have a lot more wires, as you can see. I guess I'll talk about my practice first, and then kind of go into like a sort of demonstration on some of the things that I'm thinking about. Mess with the cables. So I am currently studying architecture at RISD, and I'm thinking about the conversation between sound and architecture and synthesis and Afrofuturism and alchemy and cybernetics and the dream world and like deep listening. There's kind of a lot of different things, different aspects. The way that comes through in my music is kind of abstracting it into these impossible spaces and timelines to sort of bring my work into the more like planetary dimension, or more of like, especially with like Afro-surrealism, Afrofuturism, ways of expanding it into these impossible kind of futures that are ideal and also kind of dreamlike and magical. And the systems that I use to do that kind of came from, I guess, my general interest in experimental music, but then also the gesture and the interaction and this kind of cybernetic relationship that I've built with my synth from playing it over and over, and building deep relationships with patching and feedback. And I guess I can get into it. Wanted to start with the Arborson, which is a instrument developed by Jose in Paris, I believe, French somewhere. This is a wooden instrument that is wood with slits in it, the kerf, and the different depths of the slits determine the pitches. And this magic vial is nail polish remover and resin. And it's the gesture of the wood that makes the melody. It's my interest in modular and kind of thinking of these cybernetic systems of synthesis as a way of, or like a new media language in determining and having conversations about the politics of race and gender. Kind of started with a piece that I saw at the Whitney Biennial in 2018 by Kevin Beasley entitled "A View of a Landscape," where he took this cotton gin that he found on the side of the road on the way to a place in his hometown. And in one room, he had this cotton gin enclosed inside of a soundproof box and mic'd it with different types of microphones in different areas of the cotton gin to kind of capture its personality, but have it visually sit as this object that holds weight and holds history. And then in another room, did a series of performances kind of manipulating the sounds of the cotton gin into a new language where listening was kind of the most important part of the experience. And that manipulation of finding these like organic objects and giving them new context and bringing them into a space where you can kind of play with the object and play with the history of that object and bring it into futurist worlds and experimental and esoteric worlds, and then play with those systems as a way of discussing these things without explicitly saying, this is a cotton gin, this piece is about blackness and slavery, but more of like, how can we abstract this into something that can be playful and something that can evoke new mediums for having conversations that aren't necessarily a voice or aren't necessarily words. This might be a little bit crunchy and delayed. Okay. Hear this system. This is kind of one of those ways start to manipulate time and stretch these ideas. And if you're thinking about the Coco Quantus, which is this instrument, we'll do both of them mixed. Yeah. If you're thinking about the Coco Quantus, which is this instrument, and the manipulation of delay and making these timelines, this is Peter Blasser's instrument, and Peter Blasser's instrument is kind of based off of the pendant, or this section called the Quantussy, which is the feedback network. It's 5 oscillators. This is like right in the middle of what I'm trying to show. Anyway, 5 oscillators that have range switches and oscillator outputs, and a chaos knob that feeds these networks back into each other. And they sample each other, and it's kind of like this symbiosis, or this generative community that can be individual but then also feeds off of each other. And I'm really interested kind of in the hardness and the softness of synthesis and synthesizers. I don't think that every synthesizer, kind of historically, I guess, is the aluminum panel and the giant monolithic block, but can also be something like this, where it's a collection of different woods from different experiences that tell different stories. And maybe the section of modulation is the geology, or like the geography of where you are, and then that topology and architecture of the topology can determine synthesis, and the ways that they interact can determine synthesis. So this kind of being the 5-star pendant that interacts with the delay times and the delay feedbacks and how those networks work, kind of brings new conversation to the world of synthesis that is like mostly purely technical, but I feel like these gestures and these interactions and the arborson and the wood and the friction and the gesture kind of bring new experience to synthesis and to exploring that. And it's interesting because ground hum, thinking a lot about ground too in architecture, and usually when there's ground hum, it's like an issue in performances. You're like, oh, where's that hum coming from? That's not supposed to be there. That's like this thing it's like you're trying to get rid of it, but ground is kind of this thing that's always there regardless. And if you listen closely enough, and I think Pauline Oliveros thinks about this a lot in deep listening, and it's also a way of connecting yourself to your dreams, but like listen closely enough to the wall and you'll hear the 60 hertz hum that's coming from it, and maybe that should be introduced into the music, and maybe the radio frequencies that are always there as this like constant flowing water thing can be introduced into the sound itself, and maybe the noise is actually good every once in a while, and just kind of sitting with that and being able to develop your relationship with the thing that is kind of unwanted, or maybe you don't necessarily want to hear, is a way of developing kind of a practice, or at least a practice for myself in thinking about just relationships with these digital objects. And then across from the digital is across from the organic, which is the Coco Quantus, we have the digital synthesizer, which is the Eurorack. And the way that this system is set up, it's going to be kind of hard to show, but I'm kind of thinking of the Eurorack as the sort of computer, and guess thinking about like taxes again, and systems that are maybe like Turing complete, if you've heard that, Turing complete systems versus systems that maybe won't let you, versus like you cannot do your taxes on the Coco Quantus, but maybe you can do your taxes on something like this, if you can see down here, which is the teletype module, which is a live coding module that I use to send CV and trigger impulses, and creating these generative systems of melodies and pulses derived from single numbers, like having a single random number generator between 0 and 127, and then translating that to binary. And then each number has this binary bit of 8, and the ones become drum pulses and the zeros become nothing. It's like a rest, and then creating compositions based on these generative melodies. And that lets you kind of input any voltage, can turn it into this data format. And I'm really interested in the conversation between the organic system and changing these organic or kind of crunchy signals into things that can be more clean and melodic, and also organic in their generativeness, but more of a compositional element or tool. I'll play kind of what this system sounds like and explain it a little bit. Control of the code allows for quantization. Placing the dream world back into the context of more musicality, if that makes sense, but also experimentation. Granular synthesis has been like a really important part of my practice in terms of the stretching of time and being able to take compositional elements and take ideas for sounds and systems for creating these sounds, but stretch them on the time and space basis by taking delay and taking buffers and recording into buffers and recording into delay, and then being able to use that as a medium for creating spatial qualities. And I've done performances in spatial audio, and I think, well, I should also talk about one of the most kind of recent reoccurring ideas I'm having for spatial audio composition called information retrieval and the cybernetics of Afrofuturism. Information retrieval being inspired by the movie Brazil and the levels of bureaucracy and kind of the psychotic nature of systems and how deep they can go and how you can kind of design them over time for yourself, but then get lost in them and then kind of get stuck at level one. And these compositions are kind of sound anthologies and sound essays in collecting relevant material to discuss things about Afrofuturism and Blackness, and kind of discover my own Afrofuturism and Blackness and how that comes out in my experimental work, but then also create a kind of cyclical cybernetic, but then also spatial existence where things are more of a spiral or a circle rather than a square or a rectangle, which is most architecture and most synthesizers. So this is kind of my exploration beyond that. And there's the use of the meme and the cybernetics of Instagram in the medium of connection.
You want me to tell
over and over. I have over the forest. Stop, would you?
Let's not get too close.
Please sit down and talk to me. It's about my debit card. No. I need the money you spent $270,000.
And then the last kind of gesture and compositional element in kind of all mediums is suspense. So this can take shape in many different formats, but this is how I have introduced it. Thank you.
Where's Luke? Luke. Yay. So yeah, maybe we can maybe come with a chair.
You want me to come with a chair?
Yeah, there's a chair over there, right on your right. Yeah.
Bring a chair. Bring my own chair.
When else do you get to do a concert where you bring your own chair?
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, so maybe you can both sit, or you can sit in
I'll
front.
hang out over here.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds great.
I'll get-
Yeah, so if any of you have any questions for either of our distinguished guests, so you can use that and you can use my microphone.
Yes. It's,
Do you just carry the balloons in your pocket in case
start.
the occasion arises? You're like, I thought that was awesome.
I've done. If I had the projector, I would put up the balloon fetish porn that inspired that.
Wait a minute, what? So we're gonna ignore all of you for a minute. What balloon fetish? What? Yeah, we all want to know about this.
Yeah, this is in the era. Not that I was alive because I'm young, but this is in the era of early internet. Mostly the making of making of long format fetish content on on DVDs that they would mail out. There was a website called Mellyloon that was a collection of really interesting video. It's just it's not even necessarily super porny or graphic, but playing with balloons.
Huh?
and because I'm interested in gesture and I'm interested in the arborson, which is the rubbing of the wood and the abrasion, the abrasiveness and the abrasiveness of noise. It was really interesting to see it fetishized, and I think that synthesizers are also fetishized and synthesis is fetishized. So it was kind of a direct inspiration. I did a performance for Slab Fest, Noise Fest in Manchester, New Haven, where I projected a collection of picked, selected balloon fetish content behind me and sampled the abrasion and the playing of the balloon into the synthesis world, bringing that physicality and that latex and sexuality and gender into synthesis.
I love this. I'm pretty good at making balloon animals.
Hell yeah.
Not really the same thing, but it's like a weird skill I picked up somewhere. I can do all that stuff. Yeah, I can violate Jeff Koons's copyright very quickly in any context, right? So it's good. Yeah, cool.
So any questions?
Anybody want to say?
Yeah, after that.
I have. Luke, what is difference between sound art and noises institute?
Oh yes.
Oh, the T-shirt.
Yes. I want on that too.
No, that was like a joke that became a T-shirt, and now that it's a T-shirt, it's a real thing, right? The difference between sound art and noise is institutional backing. Yeah.
Which is why this also kind of feels weird for me because it's like a little bit of both. Which is
yeah, but
good.
yeah, it's all good. It was sort of
yeah, that's great.
it was sort of meant in jest. I was yeah, I was just
No institution.
no institution. Yeah. Yeah. But I was just thinking about the we have this lab that I run over at my day job, where we've been doing design research around synthesizers for a while. And one of the things that I just love about this world now, where there's like more than 5 people making them, right? Where there's just, there's hundreds of Euro rack manufacturers. There's crazy people like Peter Blasser. It absolutely has like a representation issue. Like the overwhelming majority of the people who make those all look like me, right? And like something needs to change in that kind of community. But irrespective of that, there are like a bunch of people now instead of there just being like 5 people or whatever. And so I think it's kind of cool now that there's a spectrum of like you can build it yourself from a kit, or you can like blow $1,000 on some like insane audiophile like oscillator thing that sounds like, yeah. So like that kind of thing. I don't know. But now I'm sort of thinking about how those things. Serge was trying to get his stuff
out there.
ARP was doing it in also.
Peter too,
yeah. And I think the people who are interested in kind of media equity issues around synthesizers are really interesting to me. And so I was thinking about that's where that joke came from, that like, if you don't have institutional backing, you're just a noise musician. Otherwise you get to be a sound artist. But the equipment's the same.
Real.
Yeah, but the tools and the
It's all
tasks,
resistors, yeah.
It's all just a bunch of resistors. Yeah.
I think now noise is fetishized. So, so
noise and sound art is very fetishized, kind of almost as like a design object too now. All like hi-fi speakers are becoming this like thing that's everywhere that people want to spend millions of dollars on, invest millions of dollars on, even though by the age that they are at, they can't hear half the frequencies that are being played off the systems.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of other things. But
I like reading those magazines, though. Those magazines that are really like dedicated to high-end stereo equipment. They're like ASMR to me.
yeah,
Like they're just very calming. You can read this like long form 8,000 word article about how they like sampled the noise floor of this specific whatever. And, in their benchmark albums are always these like audio, they're always like, it's interesting. They're always like sort of audiophile Japanese remasters of jazz.
yeah.
Which bizarre,
jazz from the
right?
70s is going to sound good on any speaker
Right.
anyway.
Right. And it's like, we put on this like A-list, like heavy gram vinyl,
It feels like they're in the room with us right now.
yeah, and it feels like they're in the room. This Coltrane album has never sounded better, and it's because of these germanium whatever, and you're like, cool, man.
It's because of these specific tubes that you can't
With
get.
these tubes. Yeah, good. Well, what else, folks?
I guess you answered all the questions
Once we answered all the questions.
by your presentation.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When did you start doing this shit? Whatever.
Coronavirus 19.
Oh,
Cool.
cool.
Because it's the only time I had any time, and well, I was in school too. People were getting rid of their cases or switching module. They're having their kind of midlife crises in COVID-19, and I was like, I want to get into modular. I'm going to DM as many people on Instagram as possible until someone sends me their case for free, and that's what happened eventually. Someone was like,
makes me really happy.
someone was like, I'm getting rid of it. Like, I'll send you my like a couple modules in my case if you really want it. If you'd stop bothering me.
That's great.
Um,
You're like the one guy I met who had a productive pandemic. I was like
yeah, I was-
teaching in my bathtub with that camera. Right?
Yeah, I was feeding off of all the millennials like midlife crises on Instagram. They're like, send me, give it to. I'm a young individual. I'm excited about synthesizers.
And did you do like a different music thing before that? Were you like a computer person?
I was
or
making.
like
I have no like traditional music background, but I was making like type beats on like apps on my mom's iPad as like a child. I was like making like house beats that were
Yeah,
like
that's
really
great.
bad.
That's
but
great.
and I don't know where the experimental thing came through. And it's also like Sadnoise is such a dumb name, but it's like really funny. Like I think I was like just like an angsty teenager listening to like Tool and like Skrillex, and I was like, I want to start a noise project. And I was like making really like weird noise stuff on like FL Studio, which is like not really the program for that. And then I just like randomly got into modular, and then like super like had all the time in the world to just be on my computer like every day nonstop, and like super dove into it. And, like,
And you assembled that system like opportunistically or with intentionality, or what was it? These are modules you came
I was
across
looking
and
for like the weirdest, most esoteric modules that no one had.
Okay.
And then just like, because I think I was really attracted to like learning systems and like doing it on hard mode, like trying to figure out like what's the most in-depth and like in control but also random way that I could do this thing. Like I found the teletype, and I was like, this will let me like get really into like a weird programming language, but then also will let me have so much control over my system, but then also so much control over random systems. So it became like a really essential like compositional tool to my system. And the ER301 came kind of later as an accompanying like modular within modular within modular, which is like really deep systems of kind of like Max. It's like a patcher that will allow me to do like compose different things based on different things that are. It's just like it was an open world that maybe that's inspired by like my interest in like Skyrim and like Fallout, just like open world video games and like exploring depths, and like I was having like really weird like crazy architectural dreams of like interesting spaces and like the desert and like falling apart infrastructure and like abandoned buildings. And I think there's that like personal like pigeonhole or like personal like deep exploration that I find really interesting. And I think just recently I'm kind of connecting that back to more contextual things such as like Afrofuturism and like space exploration and like Sun Ra's application for NASA's art program that he got rejected from. Like, it was kind of weird, just like me wanting to play with synths and like have a bunch of fun, and then now I'm like bringing that back into all the contexts, mostly in my like architecture thesis. And like trying.
When you showed up today, one of the things I thought was really interesting is like when you unloaded your box, when you opened it, everything was plugged in. Right?
Yeah.
And so do you like this is like a compositional question, like when you're like doing a show, is it like you're resuming your last show? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's great.
Whereas like you're resuming
I
like
should
the
do
state
that.
of your previous game, right? Because I do it the other way. I like meticulously reset all the knobs to 12 o'clock and unplug everything. And I do like a beginner's mind thing. I like make sure nothing's plugged in.
I do that beforehand.
Yeah.
I patch like a couple days before, like a day before, and
Got
I
it,
come
yeah.
and I perform mostly volume and like effects compositionally, but all the like generative system is there and generating. But I actually really like the idea of the pause and resume.
I was just curious because
I
I
think
was
that
like,
I
oh
would-
wow, he has everything plugged in. Shit.
I'm gonna leave it as like
Yeah.
my next set. I'm gonna resume. It's gonna be great.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that also like speaking about like coming back to worlds too that I'm designing. I think maybe that's where I'm feeling like kind of disconnect is because I'm like repatching the systems all the time, and I feel like it's like I get bored patching the same thing over and over when I just like unpatch it and I end up just like making the same patch again. But if I force myself to like resume the system and like develop it into something else, then maybe it becomes this like extension of like the cybernetics of building my relationship and being like cyborg
I have a
about
question.
it. Yes.
Do you like surprises?
Yes. No, but yes. No, but I like making the surprise.
Hence the balloon.
Hence the balloon.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Surprises are good.
So perhaps, unless you have more questions, perhaps. Oh,
Any more?
does someone have a question?
Yeah, well, this is a really interesting point, actually, because surprises. I was going to ask, it's related to Daphne's question. What is, to both of you, what is the balance between like instability and control? You know, how much you want to, just how because you mentioned, Femi, about musicality thing and, you know, the getting into a dream state and organic. A lot of times I hear those words, and I think it's somewhere around this, you know, surprises that is instability and also something I think you are really controlling, you know, what I heard, but maybe you have a kind of balance or playground of what you want to do about this.
Yeah. I think that
Articulated.
yeah. I think the balance or that line is what's most interesting. I think there's something extremely valuable about instability and about the unknown and not knowing, because that's like the only way that we get to know things is by like the unknown first and then the known. And especially in music, which is like this thing that's like sounds are being created all the time everywhere, and there's so much media and there's so much physical media and digital media now that it's like there's instability regardless, and you can't hear every single sound in the world, so might as well design something for a planet that's not here. Just like have that instability be a part of your design practice and making it organic and making it have like a life form. Like there has to be this instability and this generativeness in it having an organic life, otherwise it's too controlled. And then the control of that is kind of just the curation of what that life form is going to be. It's like developing your own personality through it, or the synth is developing its own personality and it's just talking to me and I'm having a conversation with it and developing those systems. What do you think?
I like that, you know, it's a little bit like the balloon again. You know the balloon's going to pop, you just don't know when. Right? So you have like
Time.
you can like start it going. I don't know. It's weird. I've been playing these things for an upsettingly long time, for 30 something years. And one of the things that's kind of fun about the surge system, like the classic surge system, it's not like Eurorack. It's kind of a closed loop system. There's only like sort of 30 modules that he designed in the 1973 to 1986 or whenever you say he like walked off and whatever. And anybody can make new things that are in that format, but this one is like these very specific designs. And so there's kind of like, it's unusual for a West Coast modular synthesizer, because it does have these, there is like a surge modular fake book kind of like there are like 8 or 9 maneuvers that everybody who gets good at these like knows how to do. Do you know what I mean?
I learned some tonight.
Yeah. So like yeah, exactly. So, but like everybody knows this like subharmonic oscillator trick, and everybody knows how to get like the trigger waves to make this quasi sequencer warbly thing, and everybody, like whatever. And so my whole thing is to try to always like, I practice a lot on this, and I try to make it so that I'm not repeating myself and not falling into the same kind of thing. It's a weird thing because it's a little bit like, there's a top level critique that is often leveled at laptop musicians that Eurorack people sometimes are also susceptible to, which is that whole like evidence of virtuosity. Like if you wrote the Max Patch and you're the only one who plays it and you're improvising, how do I know if you're any good at it?
Yeah, how do I know?
Right? Like how do I know if it's good? Or how do I know? Like whatever. Like, and it's it's a complex question that we're not going to solve in the next 30 seconds, but it's a thing, right?
It's like assigning the value to it. Yeah.
Anyway,
but does it matter?
It doesn't matter. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. All right.
That was great. And I hope you guys like it, because this is like the second night of our experiments, and some will be more classical. Come back Monday for Barbara Held, who's in the room, who will inform us about a collaboration with Richard Garrett, who will join us remotely from Florida. And then we have 2 screening evenings next Tuesday and Wednesday at the Emily Harvey Foundation, which are more like our classical screening evenings. So yeah. So we hope you enjoy, and thank you for coming, and continue to come and support us.
And you can experience Sadnoise live in performance on April 17th at the Rhythm in the Kitchen Festival at Main Drag.
Totally.
But still, からのコンサートで
Remember.